may see an angry, disgruntled, just willing to be traded at all costs Kevin Durant magnified by this picture here. You know, just, hey, man, it's my mic. I wish I could detach this, but I can't. I probably should have brought a detachable mic for the purposes of this video. Creators like Andy are looking down like this amateur right here. I would have had a stick mic ready to go. I mean, what is he doing? But for me, the first thing that pops in my mind is Scarface. And no, I'm not talking about the Hassa alert, all right? I'm talking about the other Scarface. The third if you were to rank Scarfaces of all time, you would have Scarface the rapper, Scarface the movie, and then Scarface from How High or Half Baked. Bleep you, bleep you, bleep you, bleep you, fuck you, I'm out. That's what's going on back here. And you know what? We're going to take advantage of KD and I'm out mode, which is a little different than YOLO mode. All right? We saw Kelly Oubre in YOLO mode before ball came back, which is just don't pass me the basketball unless you expect it to be launched. A little different between YOLO and what we're going to see tonight, which is, all right, I don't give a fuck mode. Now, let's hit the clock. 5 bets in 5 minutes begins right now, and we will start in this game, but we're not going to start where you think. We're actually going to start with a guy who has been pouring in baskets left and right, most of which has come from behind the arc. We're just going to take Jeremy Grant on his all-star campaign. Former Sixers, process Sixer, mind you. Jeremy Grant. Love to see this kid shining in the league now. It's taken a little bit, but that's what perseverance gets you. He's a threat right now, and the world is still focused so much on Damian Lillard. Teams are kind of figuring out, or trying to at least, what to do, how to defend Anthony Simons with Damian Lillard healthy on the floor. And that's opened up so much for Jeremy Grant. And I think this is an opportunity. The number at 20.5 is probably sharper than we normally like, but I think you can do that. I think you can, for sure, get to 21 tonight. So that's where we begin. Now, next play here is the Kings and Spurs game, where we look at just the total, 236, just a little too high, and I'm getting a nice little break there on the back end of the VIG. But the problem, of course, is people will look at Sacramento, what they did, the firepower and all, where you can look at Kevin Huerter, Keegan Murray, really, what you're getting with De'Aaron Fox back healthy into the fold here. Spurs, though, defend the perimeter. We talked about this on the Likes, the Leans, the Locks video as far as why we went under, and it's the same thing here today. I really like this play. This is one of my favorite plays on the board because I do think so many people are going to rush to this over expecting some major firepower. But Spurs health aside, you're going to get, for the most part, a good defending team on the perimeter, which is just going to make things a little tough for the Herders and Murrays to a lesser extent of the world. So keep an eye on who's in, who's out, but we really like the under 236 in that game. All right, the third and final game, but don't worry, we'll circle back for 2 more plays. Pistons in LA. And this is another one where I think we just keep it simple, and we're going to have a correlating play to this, but the Clippers trying to get through the whole thing about, moving forward without Kawhi Leonard, and also that tough one against the Dallas Mavericks that we saw late second bucket to lose that game. There's a way that you can get your energy out. There's a way that you get your frustrations out. And the easier thing for me to do is say that the Clippers win this game, but there's still, it's 9.5, and that's tough. You're now north of 3 full possessions, 3, 6, 9. I don't necessarily love that in blowout mode, but I do like them suffocating the Pistons. And that's where I think the angle is, which like, all right, I love the Clippers tonight, but it's hard for me to think that they beat them by 10, 12 points, and this game goes over 215. All right, well, then let's just go under 215 as the best way. All right, also, let's go back to this. Speaking of the guy with the microphone behind me, the one that you really want to hear from, not just me, of course, or not me, of course, Kevin Durant. 30.5 minus 125. That's dipped a little bit, but that's fine with me. I'm okay because, again, this is post comments on trade Kevin Durant. This is still, I'll gladly accept a trade because I don't trust what's happening here with the organization. Got you to fire the head coach, but nothing has changed. Shocker, right? Surprisingly so. That's where we're at right now with this team specifically. And I think Kevin Durant getting 35, 36 in a losing effort should be expected, especially because I just don't know how much trust there is remaining between the two in Kevin Durant and basically everybody else that he's playing with. All right, last play here. And this is one that I think is easy. It correlates. It makes sense. And one of the two
play. It's not like
still have a good shot. Technically, we could still go
because
over.
They're calling for up to 6 feet of snow, and the teams, people may not be able to get there.
They have plows in the city. Yeah, so what I'm saying is it's Thursday. The game is on Sunday. Plan for it. Get your plows out all night. Get the teams there.
No, but it's supposed to snow for it's supposed to snow nonstop for 3 straight days.
Yeah, buddy, I live in Wisconsin.
Dude, I'm just saying, I know to assume that any county or township or city is capable of making these good decisions to get the roads cleared in time, I think is giving them too much credit.
That is probably true.
Yeah. Good. All right. I didn't know. I heard a 5 and then everything disappeared. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Showdown Strategy right here, 9 a.m. on the East Coast on a Thursday morning, breaking down the Tennessee Titans on the road at Lambeau against the Green Bay Packers. It's going to be a little chilly there tonight. Should be a fun game. 3.5, 3-point spread, 3.5, depending on where you're looking. Anyway, I'm Dave Loughran at Loughran_D, LOUGHY_D. Hit me up on Twitter. And while you're at it, follow Matt Gajewski at Matt_Gajewski. Check him out for not all of his NFL work, but also all the college football and college basketball stuff he's been doing. Matt, these primetime showdown slates have just like, maybe we just need to talk about what we think is going to happen and then build lineups for the opposite today.
That is very true because there's we kind of know what teams want to do, and they've just like, we can go all the way back, I think, to that Texans game where things just got crazy, didn't go according to plan. And I remember everyone against the Eagles, I think it was building those like 5-1s. But man, on single games, you really can benefit from things going against the script that we're projecting. So I think that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, obviously I'm being facetious, of course, but it certainly feels, I mean, even 2 Philly primetime games in just a couple of weeks. You had Monday Night Football where time of possession was 40-20 in favor of Washington. They ran the ball 49 times. It's very, very strange. Like AJ Brown, 1 reception, 7 yards. Dallas Goedert, 22 yards. These are strange times in the NFL. And the thing is, what makes it different, and I do the betting stuff over on the Odd Shopper channel, been killed on some of these primetime games because you know as well as I do, it makes life a lot easier when you have more games to choose from. So if I'm like, all right, I have the whole slate, these are the games I'm keying in on. These are the ones I like. I'm going to fade the rest. Same thing with DFS. You get a main slate, you go, okay, I'm just going to fade this game. And I'm not saying we'd fade this one entirely, but we wouldn't need to play 6 players from the same game. Everybody has to do it for sure. But there are situations where we're backed into a corner. Like we have to play the narratives here, or we have to play the script, what we think is going to go down. And today should be a competitive, low-scoring game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things like tight ends, backup tight ends always score on showdown slates. Showdown slates, everything goes against the script that we're projecting to. Just kind of one of those things that seems like it happens more often when we get a primetime slate and we do all this analysis, mostly directed towards whatever the projected spread and totals in the game are. And then, things get crazy a lot in the NFL. But you can always benefit from things getting crazy. We talk about ownership and our leverage scores for a reason. And when things go maybe a little bit against what we're expecting, and you're the person that identifies that, you can really benefit from it. But tonight, yeah, like you mentioned, projected low scoring game environment. It should be a cold one. Total's just 41 points. Tennessee, we know, is going to try to run Green Bay to some degree as well here. So personally, I do think this plays to the spread and the total here, but we'll break it all down.
Two things before we do. First off, hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Take a single second, atone for your sins in the event that you forgot. All will be forgiven. And subscribe to the channel down below. Also, if you want to join, you can hit that join, get the free super chats each month, the custom emojis, all those sweet badges in chat. That can be you. And we do some other cool stuff for everybody here on the channel. Also, if you're listening in podcast form after the fact, or if you're listening here after the fact, leave a comment, podcast, subscribe to the channel, to the podcast, helps us a lot. Leave a rating or review, preferably a nice one. All right, next thing, before we get into this, I want to ask you something that's pertinent to this game, but not actually about this game. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Last week, the Denver Broncos defensive game plan for this Tennessee team, even though they lost, blame it on the offense. Their offense scored 10 points. They're garbage offensively. Their defensive game plan was actually very sound, in my opinion. They sold out to stop Derrick Henry in every way imaginable. And they did stop Derrick Henry. So basically, they're like, hey, you know what? We'll let Nick Westbrook-Akina beat us. And beat them, he did. I mean, he had a career game. Monster game from Nick Westbrook-Akina. But what I'm saying is, do you think that you're looking at a situation where, because we know Denver's run defense is actually their weakness. They can rely on some dogs in that secondary. Same thing goes for Green Bay. Do you think we see something similar where they just full sell out to stop the run game here in against the Titans tonight?
They should do that. I mean, it's going to be a little harder now that Tannehill's back, because he's actually a quarterback with a pulse. Like, he can't beat you. Malik Willis is just stone dead to like throw the ball beyond 20 yards. So I do think you should dedicate extra resources to the run game, because Tennessee has shown a willingness to use that game plan, whether Tannehill's back there or not. And I do think the Packers are going to have a little more success offensively than Denver. So you could actually see that work. I know Denver lost that game, but it was pretty close throughout. So I don't know why teams don't do that against Tennessee. Like, what are we going to dedicate extra coverage to Nick Westbrook-Akina? Maybe that beats you once or twice a year. That doesn't work. But how often does Nick Westbrook-Akina actually beat a defense? Plus, you have better, I don't know, maybe not better corners, but you have good corners for Green Bay. Some of them are banged up, but respect Jair a lot. So I think you can at least erase some of the guys that you'd be scared of beating you in the pass game.
I feel the same way. They have a very strong secondary, very bad run defense. It'll be interesting. And I think a defender fell on one of those Nick Westbrook-Akina touchdowns as well. It's like wide open. So, you know, we'll see. Crazy Pyro, Laffy's got too much energy for 9 a.m. I relate more with Matt. Dude, past few days I had no energy. I don't know what it was, just not feeling right, not getting sleep, couldn't sleep. Got a good 8 hours, got up, took a shower today. Taking a shower before doing these shows, before getting your day underway, can be very effective. But yeah, this is unusual for me at 9 a.m. This is just the way Matt is, by the way. Matt's, you know, you're a relaxed guy.
Yeah, and I had 100 beers on Tuesday night.
Are you still,
I was at the Champions Classic.
Where were you?
I was at the Champions Classic watching Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan State. So I'm still a little tired from that.
Knocking them back. Tuesday night, you say?
Tuesday night.
Yeah, you know it's. How old are you?
29.
Okay. Oh man. Once I hit probably 32, 33, if you drink enough, those hangovers can go well into the second day. Not like not the horrible anxiety or the headache or the nausea or any of that, but the absolute crippling fatigue where you drink Tuesday. I love to hear that you drank 100 beers on a weekday. Wednesday, you're just in bad shape. You go, I'm going to go to sleep early. Thursday, I'll wake up and I'll feel great. And you realize I still don't feel that great.
Yeah, I try to sweat a little bit of it out, but it's exactly that. I went to bed at like 8, woke up feeling okay. I don't feel bad. It's just a little tired.
Yeah, so just a little fatigue. That's all.
Yeah, we'll get another good sweat in today, and Friday will be 100%.
How many How many beers do you actually think you drank on Tuesday?
Oh, buddy. I don't even know. This is a disaster. The
If you
games
had
were
to
sick.
guess. I mean, ballpark, give or take 6.
26.
Okay, so we got about a case. We got about a case then.
Yeah, it was up there.
But I've seen you drink. Like, I can drink beers quick. When we were at the Cubs game at Wrigley, you drink beers. You're like, and those are big beers. And you drink beers quick.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a skill that I should be advertising.
I mean, it results in 26 beers on a Tuesday. So
That was a special occasion. That is for the Champions Classic. That is a very rare occurrence in my life.
yeah.
But anyway, that's what's up.
All right. Yeah, there you go. Now it took me 3 days to recover from the weekend. So I feel great today. Like, I'll never, it's one of those days where like, I'll never take for granted feeling normal again. So let's get into this one. We got Titans. We got the Packers. Again, glad you guys are with us today. We've got the Titans 3.5 point dogs, 19 point total. We'll kick it off with them. Of course, live before lock, we'll go position by position. We have to start with Derrick Henry here. He's the highest priced player for good reason. They're going to do everything they can to get him as much work as possible. Playing Derrick Henry makes sense. One of the few running backs that ever has a positive leverage score in our tools, in the top plays tool. 40% top play probability for a running back today. That's usually reserved for like the Christian McCaffreys when he was in Carolina type number.
Absolutely. And the slate in general is going to be wide open. There's a certain $200 player that we're going to talk about today who really just gives you the avenue to play anybody you want. Derrick Henry is going to be extremely owned, and the combination of Derrick Henry and this player, Randall Cobb, is going to be massively owned today. So how you use Derrick Henry, I think, is really key on this slate. I ran some optimals just on the back end to see what I was going to get with Derrick Henry. How was this slate going to play out from a projection standpoint? Derrick Henry is in 75% of the captain optimals. So one thing I think you can do with him is just use him at utility, because so many people are going to play Derrick Henry captain, and it comes down to lack of alternatives. We don't feel good about anybody else on Tennessee as a captain, at least, like confident they're going to have a smash game. Anyone can pop off on any given day. And then on Green Bay, who do we feel good about? Aaron Rodgers has not played well through most of the year. They use a timeshare at running back. They don't have an alpha receiver. So there's one very clear captain. And I think if you're playing large field tournaments, I'm just going to try to use him in the utility. Versus cash games, he is your locked in captain. No choice about it.
Yeah, you don't really have much of a choice. You're right. And yeah, we'll get into Randall Cobb. That's an error by DraftKings, no doubt. But with Aaron Jones, Tennessee has the #1 ranked run defense in the entire league. They smother running backs. One of the things that is interesting to me about this game in general, look at the games that the Packers have won, right? Or at least games, the one game that they won convincingly against Chicago in week 2. They used Aaron Jones Aaron Jones won them that game. Let's keep it very simple. You remember that was a total Aaron Jones game. We actually did a show on it. And then you look at last week against Dallas, they break a 5-game losing streak. They go in at home against the Dallas Cowboys. And what was it? Yes, of course, Aaron Jones had a solid game. I'm not taking that away from him. Christian Watson, he has arrived as a second-round rookie finally, more than midway through the season, looked good. But Aaron Jones, again, 24 carries, 138 yards, and a touchdown. I guess what I'm getting at, Matt, is this passing game right now, with the lack of weapons, the lack of reliable Devontae Adams type weapons that they have in the passing game, if they don't, I hate to be like, establish the run, but if they don't have a decent run game going, I think it's really difficult for the Packers to sustain long offensive drives. And we saw that for weeks, for over a month straight.
Yeah, and what changed last week is you got some explosiveness in the pass game, which opened things up in the run. So hopefully Christian Watson can continue in that role. He's the only receiver on that team that really has any juice for like explosive plays. I think Lazard is more of your consistent chain mover. but he's just not athletic enough to do the things that Christian Watson showed he's capable of doing. We'll see if he can replicate it. As far as the run game goes, I do agree with you. It's going to be important for them, not only to sustain drives, but just in general. It's the best part of this team's offense with Rodgers aging. Still, I love Watson. That was awesome what he showed, but I don't really believe in him long-term yet. He's got to show it to me a little more over a longer sample. One thing that could help here is Jeffrey Simmons is probably going to miss this game, downgraded to a DNP. He's one of the big pieces for that Tennessee defense up front, which has contributed to their strong rushing numbers, at least rushing numbers allowed against them. So that could be something to watch here, and that could help Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, the entire Green Bay run game.
It is an odd spot for sure. We'll get a little bit more into Green Bay in a bit because I agree with you on Watson. It's kind of like, hey, huge game, but do we continue to see Christian Watson put these numbers up? He could have had a fourth. He pulled up short on one. It was really weird. I don't know if he tracked the ball wrong, but you could tell Aaron Rodgers was pissed at the right pylon. It was long throw, perfect throw, got a little bit of separation, and then he just kind of pulled up on it and then tried to accelerate again. And by that point, it was too late. So, is he there yet? I guess we'll find out. But yeah, Derrick Henry, just clear top option here. I don't really think there's any two ways around that. Are you open to fading Derrick Henry in lineups at all? I mean, not in captain, but fading Derrick Henry tonight.
I was thinking about this. What do you think it would have to take for them to almost render him unusable? Like, I think Green Bay would have to get up early significantly, and then maybe you see Dontrell Hilliard in an expanded role. Maybe. But how likely is that? So I'm trying to wrestle with that right now. I don't think I'm going to do it. I think right now I'm going to approach this as similar to Jalen Hurts and some of the other studs we've had, where it's not a question of am I playing Henry or not. It's a question of where I'm playing him. So right now, I think going into it, that's where I am. Just been trying to run through the scenarios where what does it actually take for Henry to be completely unusable?
And you know what else I think is actually important that I haven't heard talked about much? You look at Derrick Henry. I know he's had some drops in the passing game. When it was Malik Willis, Derrick Henry got no passing work. When Ryan Tannehill's out there, you're looking at sometimes, 3, 4, 5 targets per game for Derrick Henry. And we've actually seen that. Tannehill returned to the offense last week. Henry didn't have any explosive catch and runs, but he did have 3 targets, right? You look at the other games, 3, 2, 5, 6. Those are the last games that Ryan Tannehill played with him before going out. And then Malik Willis comes in and Derrick Henry gets no passing work whatsoever because one of them isn't like Tannehill's mobile in the sense that if you're trying to dial up a 9-yard run at the 9, get him into the end zone when everyone thinks Derrick Henry, sure. But Malik Willis is somebody that's going to complete six passes per game and try to run. So I actually think there is additional pass catching upside with Henry, even if it's just a couple extra targets.
I agree with you 100% in that regard. And the question to me is if they get down in games, like significantly down, if Green Bay is up like 14-0 immediately and Tennessee's playing from behind the whole time. Is it
Henry or Hilliard?
Right. That's the main question. But to your point, last week, routes between Hilliard and Henry were still pretty close. 19 in favor of Hilliard, 14 in favor of Henry. So it's not like Henry's completely off the field. And we've talked about this before. Sometimes it's just, okay, we've got a run play dialed up, but Green Bay is loading the box with 8. We check out of a run play and Henry's on the field. Boom. He's suddenly in a passing game set. So it's not always just, okay, clear passing downs. We're going to put Hilliard in the game. When you do that, it tips the defense to what you're going to do. So at times, Henry, it might be a run play and he might just luck into a couple targets because they have to change the play. So I love it. I love Henry. I think we're using him tonight.
Yep. Shark Hill has said Christian Watson has literally done nothing beyond week 1. Chase it if you want to. I'll come back to that comment when we get to Green Bay. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that for a rookie. Let's get into the pass catchers. Actually, do you want to get to any Dontrell Hilliard? Could this be a spot where we say, all right, maybe they do fall behind. Maybe look, we're leaving no stone unturned given how some of these games have gone lately. Yeah. Maybe Green Bay has figured something out on offense. Does Dontrell Hilliard make any sense? Or is he still priced to a point where it's like middling play at best?
I don't hate Hilliard. He plays a decent amount. They do not use Henry as a full every down snap kind of guy. Last week, Hilliard played 26 snaps. So Yeah, I mean, he wasn't really used on those snaps, but that doesn't mean he can't be. Again, like teams just change plays at the line of scrimmage a lot. And occasionally, maybe that happens when Hilliard's on the field and he works his way into like an 8-touch game. Don't think it's likely, but it's possible. I mean, he had 2 targets too. There's worse plays tonight. People aren't going to play him at all because Randall Cobb is on the slate. So he's just like a pure leverage guy, in my opinion. You're still, for a ceiling, you're still probably looking at like a Derrick Henry injury or severe negative game script. But I think he's playable.
I'll put it to you this way. As far as backup running backs go behind a star workhorse running back that we've seen on showdown slates, he's probably one of the better ones. And again, take that for what it's worth. You know, you have to, it's all relative, but he has 3 receiving touchdowns this season. He has 3 games with double-digit fantasy points, and he's cheap. You know, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he, you know, catches a ball in the backfield and runs it 25 yards for a touchdown. So, yeah, I think it's at least worth talking about with someone like Hilliard. All right. What about the passing game, though? Yes, Westbrook-Ikhine, nice. I mean, that's clearly the game of his career, right? I can't imagine he's had any 119-yard, 2-touchdown games before. You're still looking at a Tennessee team, though, Matt, where it's like Robert Woods, who 7 targets last game is encouraging, but that's about the only thing that's encouraging because the production certainly wasn't. Westbrook-Ikhine, Treylon Burks coming off the IR. Again, a 6-target game, but did virtually nothing with those opportunities. So it's not to say that these guys don't get a little bit of work here. It's just, generally speaking, they don't do anything with it.
I think Burks is still probably the most exciting because at the end of the day, I think we can say most of these guys are unexciting players right now, but who's the player that has some upside? Well, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is really an unathletic, undrafted free agent, practice squad caliber player. I like Robert Woods, but he's a little long in the tooth at this point in his career, over the age of 30, still coming off a severe injury, season-ending injury. He's just not the guy that has the juice in the offense. If he ever really was that player, and I don't know that he was. Then you have first-round rookie and Treylon Burks, first week back off the injury, and he plays an encouraging amount of snaps, runs an encouraging amount of routes. I think that probably just goes up at the expense of Westbrook-Ikhine, and he's an explosive player. Now we haven't necessarily seen it, and this is still a low-volume passing attack, so it's going to be up and down for him, definitely. But when we're talking about a guy with maybe some upside, I think Burks fits the bill. And then at the end of the day, you mentioned the opportunity metrics. Targets weren't that different for all these guys. We're talking about a pretty narrow target distribution between the 3 of them, include Hooper, the tight end, if you want. But we know where the ball is going. And Burks is going to have a target share similar to both Westbrook-Ikhine and Robert Woods. Maybe it's a little bit behind, but it's similar at the least.
Yeah, I agree. Burks, from what I've seen when he's been on the field, I've seen some nice, you know, little explosive plays from him, decent production after the catch. Yeah. Put it this way. If one of these guys were to and I think this is what you were getting at, if one of these guys were to have a nice game today, feels like Burks is probably the guy you're looking at for that explosiveness. Robert Woods just hasn't had it this year. We didn't know what we were going to get from him coming off an ACL. We didn't know. And I think we're beginning to figure that out. And then Westbrook-Ikhine, chasing that seems like, it's not that you can't play him, because like you said, there was very little difference or disparity in opportunity last week. What was it? 6 to Burks, 7 targets to Woods, 8 to Westbrook-Ikhine. That can change from week to week. So yeah, I think all of them are in play. I agree that Burks is probably the one I like the most. Plus, he's the cheapest. If they're all getting similar opportunities, just give me more of the guy that's the cheapest. And they traded away AJ Brown to get in the first round as well. Any interest in Austin Hooper?
Yeah, I think he's a safe play. Again, he had 7 targets as well, if I'm not mistaken. So volume for him is right in this bucket too.
How much did Tannehill throw? 36 times. Wow.
That's a bit surprising, yeah. And Hooper, he definitely doesn't have the upside as like a Burks type guy from an athleticism standpoint. But big body, you could see him used around the red zone for sure. I'm not really that worried about him losing any more snaps. He's not like a full-time player in the offense, but this team uses 12 personnel a decent amount. And again, I think that's probably going to come at the expense of Nick Westbrook-Ikhine sooner rather than later. Last week, it came at the expense of Burks, but, Burks coming off the injury, to be expected somewhat. But Hooper still is going to lead this team in terms of tight end routes, tight end targets over the course of the year. He's the best two-way option they have. Once you get behind him, you're looking at Jeff Swaim, who plays a lot, but essentially all of it's blocking. You have Chigo Okonkwo, who's basically like a move tight end. He's also a rookie, so he's not a guy that's ever really going to get a full snap share unless there's an injury, not with Swaim and Hooper on the roster at least. So, I mean, these are interesting players to mention, but I think Hooper is the guy you'd be looking at the tight end position here.
Anybody else for the Titans that we should talk about from a skill player perspective?
I'm not really looking at anyone past this in terms of receiver. Among the tight ends, like Chigo Okonkwo is on the field for like route specific stuff. I don't think he's going to be a long-term option for them, like blocking a ton. He is big, but he played like this move tight end at Maryland. So he's interesting, but we're still talking about single digit routes for him. I think I'd rather go elsewhere. He should be decently owned after coming off some pretty decent games himself too. Kevin Rader plays a little bit. He's a blocker. Jeff Swaim's a blocker. I think it's kind of cut and dry with Tennessee.
Okonkwo's had some long receptions. It's so odd to look at. Like
He's
one
a beast,
reception.
dude.
What's that?
He's a beast.
Yeah, one reception, 41 yards. One reception, 48 yards. He had a 23-yard touchdown earlier. They seem to open it up for him, but it's very possible that, like you said, he runs 8 routes and has one target. You're just going to need it to be a touchdown.
That's basically what happened last week.
Yeah, he didn't score, but he had what?
Yeah.
One reception for 41. And the week before that, 1 for 48.
And that reception he had should have been like a 10-yard catch, but the bozos he was playing against just didn't tackle him.
They were too worried about Henry even after the ball was thrown.
Yeah, no, they're used to Hooper getting that catch and falling down immediately.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
true. That's
Okonkwo gets it and he runs for an extra 30 yards.
Yeah, man, Austin Hooper was expected to do big things in this league.
He's poor man Zachers falls down immediately when he gets the ball.
It's so true. That's what I like about Goddard, but he's on the IR now. That sucks. Man, do you remember those Rob Gronkowski runs down the sideline where he'd have, it was like Little Giants style or no, the Replacements, where you probably haven't seen the Replacements, but where there's just like 8 bodies draped on him and he's carrying them 30 yards downfield.
I never understood how he stood on his feet.
I did it. And these aren't children. These are grown men. Like I never got it.
The only player that might be better than Gronk, like in his prime at that, is Kittle.
Kittle's awesome at that. Yeah. Kittle's awesome. Are there any other guys in the league right now that can carry defenders? You know what I mean? Just like barrel down.
Kittle's contact balance is absurd.
It is amazing. You know who else has the best balance I ever see? And I'm not talking guys, maybe 8 guys draped on him, but off of contact and not missing a step. Nick Chubb it's one of the craziest things you'll ever see in a running back, where he could pinball off 7 guys, not even trip, and just be straight back on his feet. I've never seen we've seen it, but Nick Chubb is so spectacular in that sense.
Yeah, he's a real treat to watch. If you're in Cleveland or you're ever just catching a random Browns game, to your point, watch Nick Chubb just run through the tackles. It's unbelievable.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why I love Derrick Henry, because his explosiveness through the second level, I don't think anyone ever expects him to. Like, you look at the size, you look at how he runs, and then you're like, oh, he's gone. He's just gone. He's amazing. All right. No Randy Bullock in this game. So they bring Josh Lambo up. Not a big deal there, but just pointing that out for you guys. Any thoughts on kicker or defense for Tennessee?
I think defense is interesting for this team. They're the underdog in the game, so I think they come in with less ownership. And it's not like Green Bay has gotten here without errors. Aaron Rodgers, they're coming off the spectacular game where Christian Watson put it all together. But through much of the year, we've seen turnover-prone Aaron Rodgers pop up, and that very well could be the case here. Tennessee has a strong front, even if Jeffrey Simmons doesn't get going for this game.
I agree. But and that's kind of what I was saying earlier is if if they are able to kind of shut down this run game, and you know what, you could be right too, Matt. Like the run game or the pass game opened up the run game opened up the pass. In essence, it was a balanced offense that put points on the board for them last week for the Packers. If Tennessee's defensive front, which are just a bunch of behemoths, if they're able to bottle up this run game for Green Bay, would it really shock you to see some mistakes for Aaron Rodgers? So, yeah, I don't think so at all. Talk about the Packers here. Before we do, though, shout out to our sponsor, No House Advantage. More screenshots rolling into our Stokastic Hall of Fame for those of you guys that have signed up and are playing over there. The overlay's been wild every single week, every game. Mike, I'm sure you could pull it up now. It's probably like 9% filled for tonight's contest. Nice top prizes too, like nice cash prizes up top. These aren't, $300 first place payouts. It's solid. All you're doing is building lineups with player props, the same you would do building lineups anywhere else, and you're playing against the field, except in this case, you're just looking at no juice, just props, over, under, and no salary cap. The ones you like the most go at the top, they get the most points. The ones you're least confident go at the bottom, they get the fewest points. Kind of like some iteration of a showdown, really, with DraftKings, where you have the captain spot, except in this case, they're tiered down for points, the ones you like the most, the ones you like the least. They have a multi-lineup generator over at No House Advantage. At Stokastic for free, we have the No House Advantage lineup generator and No House Advantage player prop projections, which is huge. You have the $50 first match deposit bonus when you sign up using the link in the description or the one in chat. You got to use the link, though, if you want to get credited for that. It's an awesome site. You can also, if you want to test your skills against the house and play a different format, you get all your picks right. You 20x your entry. So a lot of different ways to do it. You have NBA, NFL, college football, World Cup is coming soon. Just all the major sports leagues. Like I said, up to $50 first match deposit bonus, lineup generator, projections, all free at Stokastic when you use this link. And Matt, I think the biggest thing, I'll go back to it again though, the overlay. Like you don't find overlay like this anywhere else anymore.
No, it's arguably the number one thing you should be hunting for when you're playing DFS. It's a big part of what I try to do. You're just reducing the amount of competitors you're competing with, and these tournaments are sized ahead of time. If it's a 50,000 person contest and 10,000 people enter, it's still paying out as if it's a 50,000 person contest, but you're only playing against those 10. So you just increase your chances of actually taking home a prize substantially. It's the number one thing to look for.
Look at this. 104 out of 1,600 for tonight. That's where we're at. 36 out of 1,200 for NBA. Mike, go back. Thanks. It's crazy. Sunday doesn't even have a single person in it yet out of 2,400. That's
amazing.
Come on, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. And the cash prizes aren't bad at all. So check it out. Links in the description. Mike can throw it in the chat. Get in on that. All right, let's talk about the Packers here. We kind of already divulged some of our thoughts into what we do with the Packers and how we view them. I want to start with Watson, though. When Sharko said that, you'd be chasing Watson, on one hand, I get what you're saying. On the other hand, Matt, in the back of my head, that voice is telling me, all right, Aaron Rodgers in the past was second-round players. I know Aaron Rodgers isn't the same Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers also hasn't had the same weapons that Aaron Rodgers has had in the past. In the back of my head, that voice is saying, yeah, but what if Christian Watson ends up, what if that kind of was the game that got them on this? What if that was the breakout for Christian Watson, so to speak? Not the 3 touchdown every game breakout, but what if Christian Watson became the guy after that game? And Aaron Rodgers begins to trust him. So I think there's 2 sides of this coin for sure going into tonight.
I think so too. And it's kind of dependent on, what do you think Randall Cobb gives you when he's back? And we'll talk about him in a little bit, but other receivers in this offense, I think you could maybe reasonably argue that Allen Lazard out-targets Christian Watson the rest of the way, just with the consistency we've seen from Lazard, but I'm not confident in that. Christian Watson is by far the receiver with the best pedigree on this team right now. High second-round pick, explosive, athletic skill set. He's the one that can actually open up your offense. similar to what MVS did, but you hope he's just a better player than MVS coming with that draft capital. And then the targets are going to be there to some degree. It's not like Allen Lazard had just a commanding target share on this team.
Right.
I think at the very least, it's going to be close between these two. Watkins is going to come off the field now that Randall Cobb is back, I'm guessing at least. So I think your 3 wide receiver sets are going to be Cobb in the slot, and then Christian Watson, Allen Lazard on the perimeter.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, not a big fan of Sammy Watkins.
He's old, and man, he just doesn't have it at this point.
Are you finally off the Sammy Watkins bandwagon?
Yes.
I'm joking because like 2 years ago, you remember with Kyle Dvorak, we talked every week. We're like, it's doable. Was he on Kansas City at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Lost all my money.
All right.
So
who do we think? So what do we think we see today? Let's assume that Randall Cobb is back. What do we expect to see in this game as far as who's going to be on the field the most on Thursday Night Football? Like last week, I'm just looking at routes run last week, just pulling this up. So it was what? 20. Wow. See, they ran the ball a lot. 21, 23 for Lazard. I don't know how many dropbacks Rodgers had. You might have that in front of you so we could see.
25.
Well, okay. So basically almost every route or every dropback Lazard was running around. Christian Watson, 21 to 25, Tanyan 13, Watkins 8, Aaron Jones 10. Yeah, that was pretty condensed, huh?
Pretty condensed, yeah. And now with Randall Cobb back, I don't think you see.
You think wait, hold on. I don't mean to cut you up, but we're assuming that Randall Cobb will be active tonight?
Yeah, so we're kind of reading the tea leaves. They have till, 4 p.m. Eastern time? I forget the time. They have till later in the day to actually activate him. But if you kind of read through the tea leaves, I think we can almost assume they're going to activate him. They release both Amari Rodgers and Kylan Hill.
Good
but
point.
Then they only promoted Patrick Taylor. So right now they have an open roster spot with no one on it.
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot more sense now if you're looking at the guys that they released. All right. So then let's break it down a little bit. I cut you off, but while you were getting into that, just to clarify, but I go ahead as far as you see that playing out as far as being on the field for these receivers and pass catchers for Green Bay.
I think you have Watson and Lazard almost full-time players, just like they were last week. They run a fair amount of 12 personnel and 21 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, 2 running backs. Those are different skill sets, but you'll see the Packers use both of those packages at times, which brings the third receiver off the field. So I think Cobb will be on the field for a majority of snaps, but when they do decide to use Mercedes Lewis, when they do decide to use both A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones on the field at the same time, it'll come at the expense of Cobb, which makes sense. He's coming off an IR trip. I mean, he's been out the last, I think, 4+ weeks at this point. So that's what I think happens. You probably don't see a lot of Watkins. Moratori, wouldn't expect to see him either.
Listen to these stats on Christian Watson last week. I mean, look, I get it was only one game and things can certainly change. And the Green Bay Packers offense has been, underwhelming at best all season. And no, you know what? That's unfair to underwhelming teams. Their offense has sucked ass. All right. But Christian Watson, I almost went to Sal Governale, sucks shit. You have to go back and check that out. Maybe Mike remembers that, the old Artie Lang days where he'd tell him, and beer league sucked shit. 8 targets, Matt. 4 of them were deep attempts. He caught 2 of them for 2 touchdowns. And like I said, that one he pulled up on. So 8 targets, by far the target share there. I mean, 8, how many passes did Rodgers throw? He threw 20 balls in that game. 8 targets went to Christian Watson, and 4 of them were 20+ yards downfield. Look, maybe tonight there's just none of that, but my God, what a roll. If you saw that roll for 3 straight weeks, you'd be willing to pay a decent amount each week for Christian Watson. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's probably going to take a little bit of time to at least develop consistency. We've seen him struggle with drops. He's made a lot of mental mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a guy that came out of an FCS school that had his final season erased due to COVID. He didn't play. They played a spring season that year. So, I mean, he's barely played, and he's a big, explosive, athletic receiving guy who played in an offense that runs the ball 75% of the time. So, I mean, he is very much a project. I would not expect consistency from him right away. And that's exactly what we've seen to start the year. But now we're in week 11. I mean, it's starting to come along for him a little bit, and he's open a lot. It's not like this is the first time he's been open downfield. He's just dropped a lot of passes, made a lot of mistakes. So I don't think it's going to be a smooth road for him, but I do think he is going to be the guy they look to for some of those explosive plays. Lazard just can't make them. Sammy Watkins just can't make them. Randall Cobb can't make them.
It's such a great point, because I was going to bring up Sean V's comment where he said, and Watson dropped his first 2 targets and Rodgers kept going to him. And then you mentioned what was I think the biggest variable in all of this. Rodgers might be back there in the pocket going, all right, this guy dropped 2. I mean, what am I? And then he realizes he's the only guy getting any separation. He's the only guy that's open on a lot of these plays. So you might see Christian Watson drop 2 easy touchdowns tonight. You know, you might see Rodgers get frustrated with him and stop going to him. But if he's open, maybe Rodgers has no alternative but to throw him the football.
I still don't believe in the separation for Lazard, Watkins, Cobb. So plus they invested such a high draft pick in him. Like they're going to go to him to some degree. Whether you think he has the 3 touchdowns again, that's a different story, but it's not like his target numbers are going to fall off a cliff.
Yeah, I agree. But I think we're on the same page in that, like, we don't expect consistency from him. He's a rookie, but he's a rookie that they drafted with the intention of actually using him. And then Romeo Doubs was the guy that Rodgers trusted the most. We can go back to Lazard, of course. You know, he's a red zone threat. But Romeo Doubs is a guy that Rodgers looked to a lot, and he's already been ruled out. So, yeah, I think Watson has true boom bust potential on a slate like this, right? There's no question. This could be it could be an unmitigated disaster, or you could be looking at another game where Watson has 3-4 balls targeted deep downfield, especially if the run game gets shut down early. So I don't know if there's much more to say about it.
No, I agree with you. I think just for DFS and from a pricing standpoint, we broke down their roles a lot. He is very close in price to Lazard. And I think just projecting out the Packers the rest of the way through the whole year, you probably see Lazard with a few more targets. I think it's close. But on today's slate, I think a lot of people are going to chase that Watson game. So I'm going to try to buy low a little bit on Lazard. Again, I don't think he's an explosive playmaker, but I do think he's an active chain mover. You could see him involved in the red zone. He's a big-bodied receiver, and they're close in price. So if I can maybe shave off a little bit of that ownership, pay up for Lazard, I'm going to be looking at that.
I almost feel like if I'm playing Christian Watson, I want to play him at captain. Here's what I'm saying, right? He has positive leverage in the captain spot, and it feels like maybe that's the one way to get a little bit different with Watson. Only, and not big positive leverage, of course, but what is he, 4% owned? Yeah, a little bit of positive leverage in the captain spot, very little ownership in the captain spot. We're projecting him for less than half of Lazard's captain ownership. So I think there's at least something to be said that, hey, if you're going for just that big all or nothing game from Christian Watson, why not throw him in the captain spot in some of those lineups?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think outside of Henry, the ownership is going to be pretty spread at captain. I was surprised to see Watson so high.
Me too. Wait, for what?
In the captain, I did not think he'd be approaching 5%.
Really? After last game?
I mean, I guess after the big game, yeah.
I don't know. I'm honestly surprised to see Watkins getting almost, getting 9% at about a higher price point. But you're right. It's spread out outside of Henry. I will say, I'm not a huge fan of Aaron Jones at captain today. Maybe you can change my mind.
I'm fine with him there. If it plays to the spread, Green Bay wants to run it. He's another guy I think I'm looking at using in the flex more so than the captain spot, just because of that ownership number. So it's not that I don't like Aaron Jones, but at the end of the day, he is going to cede some work to AJ Dillon. This is kind of going to depend on how the game goes. We've seen Green Bay kind of ice games a little bit with AJ Dillon in the past, which, I mean, you could factor into your own lineups if you choose, but Jones still has a ceiling. And when we're just ranking the ceilings of these players in the slates, would you put anyone else ahead of him other than Derrick Henry?
No, I wouldn't. But I guess the point I'm making is if they're that close in price, I'd probably just end up getting more Henry at captain.
Oh yeah, I agree with that 100%.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
That's kind of what I meant. Not that I ranking one guy from captain, first and second. Yes, I would go Henry to Jones, but I still would put Jones a distant second because they're only separated by $400.
And we're seeing Jones come in with 14% captain ownership right now. So that's a pretty high number for a guy who is in a timeshare and will be ceding work to AJ Dillon.
Yeah. And
it was a little high for me.
If you're just using our tools, like the top plays tool is awesome here because you're getting everything. You're getting captain ownership, utility ownership. You're getting top play probability. What's the likelihood that they're going to be the top play? What's the likelihood, the probability that they're the optimal captain, which is huge. All of this stuff plays in, right? Because you could go, okay, wait, they have a very high top play probability, but their optimal captain probability is a lot lower. And a lot of times that's just because it's tougher to build a great lineup when these guys are priced through the roof. You have leverage score, which is, by the way, you get all of our NFL tools for free for 3 days. Mike put the link in earlier. He can throw it in again. It's in chat. It's in the description for those of you watching after the fact. 3 days completely free. Use that link. No strings attached. If you don't like it, you can bounce. I think you will like it though, especially for Showdown. Take advantage of it for sure. But look at this, man. So $400 separated. I know that Henry is getting more ownership in the captain spot, but he still has 16% optimal captain probability. Jones is at 7.6%. Henry, 40% top play probability. Jones at 16.6%. That's a pretty big gap.
Yeah, it is. And I just want to see how this shakes out throughout the day because my first instinct when Randall Cobb was basically, he hasn't been ruled in yet, but I think reading the tea leaves, it's almost certain that he'll play. Do you think more people will play Henry than this once the news comes in?
I'm sorry, the news about what?
Randall Cobb, like if he's officially activated to IR.
Yeah. I honestly don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. People are going to play Henry regardless, right?
That's true.
I don't think more people will play Henry. I just think that these contests are going to be littered with Henry Cobb lineups.
Yeah, that's true as well.
Maybe I could be wrong. But again, Jones is $400 cheaper than him. Maybe more people play Henry and Jones together if Cobb is active instead of just playing more Henry.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's not really that hard to fit. I ran optimals this morning and you get 75% Derrick Henry captain. Those lineups have 80% Aaron Jones.
Okay, there you go. How much Randall Cobb do they have?
85%.
You should take Randall Cobb out of the player pool and see what happens.
I'll do it right now.
He's expected to be activated, by the way. I'm not saying he's not going to.
If you take him out, you go from 75% Derrick Henry captain to 30%.
And how much Jones do you get?
Still 75%.
Interesting. Okay. Who do you get most of at captain?
Most of at captain. Randall Cobb. So I took him out of the utility.
Oh, you forgot to take him out of captain.
All right, I'm running it again.
All right, that makes a lot more sense. I'm thinking 30%. Who the fuck is going in it?
Okay, so I removed him entirely from the player pool. With Randall Cobb in there, you get 75% Derrick Henry captain. Without him, you get 60% Derrick Henry captain.
Okay, so right, exactly. So what? That's still a lot. So then what happens? What happens? I'm assuming you're getting less Aaron Jones now for sure, right?
Yeah, he's at 40%. So he was basically cut in half.
So the difference in a game like this is, what do you do with Randall Cobb? This truly makes me just want to play less Randall Cobb.
He's risky, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're playing cash, like lock him in, sure.
For sure.
Because you just don't find guys that are, I mean, even if he got 4 targets at 200, that's amazing. Normally these 200 guys were playing, like, I hope they get 2 targets, 2 catches and 20 yards. Randall Cobb could legitimately have like 5 for 40 and essentially break the slate. Like if he does that, you need him at that price, but we don't know how much he plays. We don't know if he's effective. He wasn't effective at all before he left. And it's not like there aren't other cheap players we could get to. Like you could always do a middling build with kickers instead too. So I don't know. I'm toying around with Randall Cobb. The other thing with him is if you play him, I think you probably just sacrifice one of those big guys. So again, with Randall Cobb in there, you're essentially playing optimals at least 95% Aaron Rodgers, 80% Aaron Jones, 75% Derrick Henry captain. Yep. So you can see like all these guys are attached to each other. So if you fade just like one of them and then play Randall Cobb, you're probably already gaining some leverage.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you're gaining leverage by not playing him at all or by playing him without all of the superstars. Not saying, no, I'm saying without jamming everybody in and going to the easy, because, you know, everyone's eyes light up when you see, okay, I can put Randall Cobb in and now I can play everybody. There are ways to be different. It's actually this Randall Cobb thing, I actually like what it does for this slate.
Me too, because it's probably condensing everything.
Right.
So take Aaron Jones out and play AJ Dillon instead, or like maybe do something that's a little closer in price, but you get what I'm saying. Maybe just don't play one of the elite guys, go down a little bit in price, leave a bit of salary on the table, and you're probably shaving off a lot of that ownership.
Any other thoughts here for Green Bay that we haven't touched on? Any Mercedes Lewis? Anybody else that's worth getting into?
Those guys are just punts. So you've got Tunyon. I'm kind of interested in Tunyon, just hoping better days are ahead for him. Still playing a fair amount. It's nothing crazy. It's definitely not even like a full-time player for this offense, like 25 dropbacks, 15 routes last week. I don't really want a lot of Mercedes Lewis. He's kind of coming off his one of the best games of his career. I don't think Mercedes Lewis is going to be very involved. And then guys like DeGuara, these are just, all right, he plays a few snaps, falls into the end zone. Boom, he's your leverage playoff Cobb, but they're all pretty thin. My favorite's going to be Robert Tunyon.
Who's coming off one of the best games of his career?
Mercedes Lewis. Didn't he catch a pass?
Okay. I thought you were just because he had one reception for -1 yards.
Yeah, I watched the game. I remember he caught a pass. Usually he doesn't catch any passes.
Hey, calm down there, fella. He had back-to-back games with 1 reception.
Oh, okay. So he's running hot.
Yeah, he's running -1 and 19. So, all right. And then I think we would agree Crosby's entirely in play. I think Green Bay's defense is in play too. I think both in a 41-point total game, 24-degree temperatures, wind gusts. Wind's not supposed to be terrible, but I saw gusting up to like 18, 19 miles per hour. Anytime and we know that like kickers are still fine here. It really doesn't. It's not sustained wins, but I do think the defenses, both of them, are very much in play in a game like this.
100% agree.
Want to build a lineup?
Let's do it.
NBA strategy shows coming up next. This is a weird slate. I think there's 4 games and all of them tip at 10 o'clock or later. Very strange. Live Before Lock's at 9 tonight. It's so weird. NFL Live Before Lock is at 7, so hang out with us. You got NHL strategy show at 2. You got the matchup strategy shows, Matt Savoca and myself at 11 Eastern. We're going to get you prepped, primed, and ready for this main slate. And then if you have signed up at No House Advantage, take advantage of that overlay. Take advantage of our free tools, $50 deposit bonus. You got 3 o'clock and 3:30. Also, one more thing for you guys. Oh, boom, 100 likes. Appreciate it. Got 500 watching, 100 likes. Ratio could be a little bit better. I know there's some of you out there that maybe forgot. Take a second. But if you want 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, yes, 2 free months of all of our tools. Matt and I talk about the top play tool, the ownership, the projections, the top stacks tool, which is massive, not just for football, but for so many other sports, and all of these tools across every sport that all of these sites have. If you haven't done that yet, and you haven't signed up at BetMGM, truthfully, what are you waiting for? The link's in the description. The link is about to be in chat. All you're doing is clicking that link, following the simple directions, taking $10, $10 or more if you would like, because they're also offering up to $1,000 risk-free bet. So if you got a little money to play with, do more than $10. That doesn't affect us, but it helps you. in the event that you're like, all right, risk-free bet, I get my bets, I get my money back if I lose that first bet. And I'm getting 2 free months of all of the DFS tools over at Stokastic just by putting $10 in at BetMGM, making any bet. And once that settles, BetMGM emails you 2 free months. This is going away. We're going to be down to 1 month. Get the 2 free months, $240 value. All of our tools, every single sport, just by using that link to sign up, putting $10 into BetMGM and betting on anything. And like I said, up to $1,000 risk-free bet as well. Awesome, awesome deal. Take advantage of that. And we'll see you over there. Join our Discord after you do. Full access to the Discord on top of that. All right. Catch my breath here. Build a lineup. Should we go large field and do it? Because we were just talking about all the leverage spots you can work with Randall Cobb. You want to go large field tournament today, Matt?
Yeah. Let's do like the 500K to first.
Okay. And Swoop had said earlier, I saw that in chat, like you gotta, think outside the box. I agree. I mean, obviously rely on the tools, but I think thinking outside the box for me with a Christian Watson captain makes sense because he could be terrible or he could be great. Who do you want to go with at captain?
For large field, I was kind of thinking going Aaron Rodgers.
Interesting. All right. What's his captain ownership at?
He's positive leverage there.
He is. Okay. If you're going, then I'm going to go with Christian Watson here. Large field. I'm fine with this boom bust in terms of he could be awful or he could have another big game. And go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's one of these things where you go, all right, I chased it and it didn't work. Or you go, I chased it, maybe not chasing, and then it did work. And you caught on early in the game before Christian Watson starts becoming the number one receiver down the stretch. It's one or the other. We'll figure out what it's going to be. So I'll go Christian Watson.
Okay, I like it. And we have the stack. So I'm going to take the layup with Derrick Henry. I think we just want to play him. It's a matter of captain versus flex, and we wouldn't contrarian captain. So we're going to play him in the flex.
I like it. Let's assume this game is competitive. And let's assume that there's a little bit of action in the passing game for Tennessee. I'm going to go Treylon Burks. I think we both like him a little bit today.
I think we're already being pretty contrarian with this. So honestly, do we take the layup with Randall Cobb and play whoever we want? Because we're going to have enough salary to do it.
Yeah.
Other than Aaron Jones, like we could play any of the guys below that and shave off as much as we want to ownership wise.
I'm not convinced this is massively contrarian just because there will still be some Aaron Rodgers captain ownership. So what can we do here with the last spot to make it interesting?
Well, we don't have Aaron Jones in our lineup, so that's going to shave off.
That is true.
A lot.
Maybe leave a little salary on the table here.
I think so.
Or you could go Tannehill with the Henry and Burks. That's interesting. Or we could go with like an AJ Dillon. We could go
Lazard, even double stack Aaron Rodgers, and Alan Lazard leaves 1,400 on the table.
All right, let's do that. Let's go Lazard. Yeah, that's a triple stack with Rodgers though.
Oh yeah, sorry, Randall Cobb is in there.
That might be a little bit different. All right, cool. I like it. Check out our lineup generator too. Our lineup builder, all of that stuff. Help you out. We have a lineup generator over at Stokastic. If you're using those 3 free days, or if you're getting in at BetMGM for the 2 free months, you can export everything to CSV. You can generate lineups. We have it for Showdown as well. It's very, very cool. Appreciate you guys. Matt, anything else before we head out?
No, I think you hit on it all. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah, follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski, me at Loppy_D. NBA strategy show coming up next. Peace.